disruptive.
America that I fought.
Weird thing to happen. Hello, one and all. Welcome to this edition of Kitz Corner. It's been a fantastic day so far. So I love how there's a lot of old clips that are resurfacing, educating people about the history of Israel. And, you know, before October 7th, before we even covered any of this, I didn't really know much about Middle Eastern countries. I knew there was problems with Israel and Palestine. I knew about, kind of a little bit here and there. I saw the documentary Killing Gaza that Max Blumenthal and Dan Cohen put together. I knew there was a situation there. I just didn't know how deep this was. I didn't know, the formation of the country, the CIA getting involved, about Mossad, and how this all came to be. And then once October 7th came around and started looking into that and investigating, you realize a lot of things that they left out purposely to, again, manipulate people so they're not educated on the history of Israel. Because if they really are and know about why this country, this settlement, I guess we'll call it a settlement, an occupying territory, came to be, you know exactly why the establishment, the United States, against every other nation around the world, every other nation is supportive of Palestinian territory. But surprisingly, the United States and Israel seem to be the only two territories that are desperate to cling on to each other. And you know why. You know exactly why. As Robert F. Kennedy Jr. once stated, that Israel is like our aircraft carrier. And it really is. It's a giant military base for the United States to occupy territorial regime in Middle Eastern territory. That's why it's so strategically perfect, placed right in the Palestinian territory. And in order to occupy that territory, they have to slaughter as many people as possible. So why am I bringing all this up? Well, because there's an actor by the name of Paul Newman, and I don't know if people remember Paul Newman or seen this guy before. He used to do movies with Elizabeth Taylor, I think. I don't know. Go look up on IMDb. That's why I saw when I did a quick Google search on him. But people may recognize the name. But anyway, he appeared on the Phil Donahue Show, which is a talk show back in the day that used to discuss about war, and that's why this talk show never exists again. Why Phil Donahue got kicked off of MSNBC, because he actually told the truth about Iraq war. He told the truth about occupying territory in Middle Eastern countries. And that's why you don't see any of these talk shows today. That's why you don't see a heartfelt conversation about real things instead of the goopy daytime BS that you see today. But watch what Paul Newman says about Israel on the Phil Donahue Show. And it's amazing that this actor from Hollywood is actually a little educated on the situation and can actually bring detail and highlight this regime that's occupying the Palestinian territory. Watch this.
In 1978 or 79, the Israelis shot down a Libyan civilian aircraft because it had violated Israeli airspace. President Nixon sent a wire to Gaddafi and to Sadat apologizing for this incident. There was no talk about it going into the United Nations. The International Pilots Associations had their meeting. There was 102 nations that voted to condemn Israel, and 4 that voted not to, and the American representative abstained. Why? Because we couldn't create an enemy there. But when the Soviets shoot down an airliner, the same situation, we rise in moral outrage against this act. What is the difference? Because it's insistent. We must insist that the Soviets have got to be created as an enemy. Otherwise, if they're not really a big enough enemy, how are we going to get appropriations for more arms?
Wow. That came from an actor. You don't even hear, military generals saying this. They're going with the gobbledygook of the establishment that, oh, well, we're told that they're enemies and that's why we got to kill, because killing is good for, things. And stuff like that. But Paul Newman actually read up on the stuff. Paul Newman's actually been educated on that, and that's why they're keeping people out of the dark when it comes to reading up about Israel. They don't want people to know about how their country was made or why they're considered, the ethno-state of the Jewish people. They want nothing to know about any of this. They don't want people to know and educate themselves on this because they want to get away with their evil terrorist ploys. They want to get away with their war crimes. And they want people like Netanyahu to be charged of that so that they can create terrorist groups, which we exposed numerous times that the reason Hamas exists, and no one ever asked that question, why does Hamas exist in the first place? The reason for it is because Israel needed something to control Palestine with. They needed an occupying force. They created Hamas to legitimize the Palestinian resistance, the non-violent Palestinian resistance. They needed something to overthrow that. They created Hamas. Hamas came in and overthrew that, and now they're fighting the terrorist creation that they erected. The same exact strategy we've been doing in the United States since the 50s. It's all a big, giant scam, folks. This is the whole point of this. And this is what I've been trying to tell people since October 7th, since Ukraine, since all these wars. That it's a big, giant effing scam. That all these monsters and villains that they try to create and say this territory and this country is your enemy compared to this territory and your allies of this, it's all a goddamn scam. It's the top oligarchs that are creating this game of Risk, and they're using us as collateral. And the people that are so violently angry for war, the people that are so heinously pro-war, are the same assholes who would never fight their own battles in the first place. And that's how you know how cowardly they are. As Jesse Ventura once said, they're chicken hawks. They're hawks when it comes to war, and they want to retaliate and go against other countries, and they want to violently attack them, but they would never do it themselves. They would never, ever lace up and shut up and boots on the ground and actually do it themselves, purposely, because they're cowards. But they're also bloodthirsty thugs. So that is amazing there. And here's also another point to mention. This is from 1987, and this is a senator by the name of Ted Pike, who told us back in 1987 how terrible the AIPAC lobby is. And just like, you know, all these warnings that we were told yesteryear with Dwight D. Eisenhower saying that the military-industrial complex was such a dangerous threat, probably should have taken that more seriously. You know, instead of just saying it's a kook or a conspiracy or a tinfoil hat, maybe took a little bit of consideration to maybe hear him out. Because what he's about to say here is as true as now as it was back then. Listen to this.
Hello, I'm Ted Pike, and this is my wife, Alin. Today, a foreign government, Israel, operates the most powerful lobby in Congress. This is AIPAC, the American Israel Public Affairs Committee. Through control of Congress, Israel demands and gets nearly $5 billion annually. No elected official dares criticize Israel for fear the Jewish lobby will accuse him of anti-Semitism, the kiss of death for any politician. The president also knows what Israel wants, Israel gets. To act otherwise is political suicide. The mass media, founded and controlled primarily by Jews, manipulates the spigot of information out of which heartland America drinks. The message of this contaminated source is, if you criticize Israel, you are anti-Semitic. Be safe. Keep your head down, or you are fair game for being knocked off by the Zionist shooting gallery.
As a result, our president and elected officials are slaves to political correctness when it comes to Jews and Israel. They cannot seriously criticize Israel, especially as the source of Mideast strife and terrorism. They cannot suggest an end of aid to Israel. They cannot even protest Zionist control of Congress.
That's incredible. That was able to be said in 1987. And all that could be applied to right now. All that could be applied to the fact that cops are beating the heads off of college kids. This is entirely the example of domination over a foreign lobby dominating over a country. You know, we spent the last how many years complaining and conspiring to think that Russia somehow hacked democracy and took it over and got, you know, Donald Trump elected as president. But yet this whole time, it was actually a far bigger lobby, a more evil empire that really took over, that no one dares to criticize because, as you just said there, it's political suicide. It's a career killer. If you mention anything to do with AIPAC, if you mention or critique or say anything about how we're aiding this foreign lobby to mass murder civilians overseas on the behest of a Zionist cult, you'd be kicked off the air. You wouldn't have a political job. You wouldn't have a career. You'll be defamed as an anti-Semitic person. Even though that most Jewish people, majority of Jewish people, denounce Israel, denounce Zionism. And the only reason that Zionism is conflated with Judaism is because the Zionists did themselves as a cover. They did it as a cover. So if they get called out, then you're stating that, oh, I guess you're criticizing Jewish people then. I guess you want the Jewish genocide. You want another Holocaust then. They purposely did that to manipulate people. They purposely did that as a psyops to mentally psych out people who actually critique Israel, who critique the war crimes, who critique the mass amount of money expenditure that we've, over many years, given to this territory to slaughter people. And here's something that Jackson Hinkle even pointed out, because we've exposed that even people in Israel are protesting against this war. People in Israel are protesting against their own government because they know that this is a scam. This has been manufactured. That October 7th was a conspiracy done up by Netanyahu as a scenario to allow them to get a genocide forward. They wanted some sort of scenario to convince people that, hey, we got to storm in. We got to retaliate against the Palestinians. They know that something was up, that the IDF was purposely flawed on that day of the music festival. And that's why the participants of the music festival are protesting against Israel, not Palestine. They're protesting against Israel because Israel knew that these people were going to storm in and havoc was going to be met up. So here's Jackson Hinkle saying that the Israeli people are protesting Tel Aviv after Israel admitting to murdering 3 of its own hostages. And why would Israel kill its own hostages? For the exact purpose of not saving the hostages. Why they have had every opportunity to protect those hostages. They had every time to negotiate with Hamas, and they didn't, to allow this war to keep going. And surprisingly enough, it even made it to NBC News in this video here. Listen to this. Look at that. This is people in Israel.
אחראים עליהם, יסיימו את חייהם בעזה, הם הגיעו לשם.
They're directly calling out members of the IDF. So that's Israeli people even awake to realize how manufactured this war is. How they know that Netanyahu is a war criminal, how Netanyahu paid Hamas to keep going, how he orchestrated this terrorist group to advance into Palestine, take over the Palestinian nation, and then put two and two together and got us into this horrific genocide that's massacring many people on both sides of the aisle, because we're basically collateral. And that's the only reason, like, the hostages are never going to be saved, because they need that as an excuse, as leverage to continue this war. And people are waking to this. People are realizing this. They know that it's a setup. But the people that are still chanting, like Michael Rappaport and Brigitte Gabrielle, or whatever her name is, the one that looks like Janine Pirro, but horrible makeup and Botox, and other people still think that this is some sort of defect, that this is some sort of defense for the Israeli hostages. No, because even the government of Israel admits that they don't even care about the hostages. They need it as leverage to keep this war going, because the end goal is to eradicate the entire population of Palestine. The whole goddamn thing is a scam, folks. And if the people of Israel are even awake to this, then God forbid we should be awake to this. Do not get fooled by the AIPAC lobby. Do not get fooled by the political correctness of the higher-ups demonizing you, telling you that you have to go through this agenda. Because as a person that's lived through the 20-plus years of war lies and exposed it on this channel numerous times, I could smell a rat. I could smell BS. I could smell this is manufactured. And I'm pointing it out to you. And if you can't handle that, then by all means, if you're still supportive of this war and want to continue on the bloodshed and disaster that it contains, then by all means, go and listen, sign up. Prove me wrong. Go on the front lines, lace up. All the Ben Shapiros out there, go and lace up and prove us wrong. Because you are just acting like chumps for the establishment and exposing how little you know about any of this. The people of Israel are standing up against their own government. And I don't see any of the pro-Israel, social media critics out there even pointing that out. Because they don't want to lose the narrative. They don't want to lose the official facade agency narrative that Israel's the chosen people. It's the sanctity of all life on earth. Until you realize that vision is gone.